This is episode 122 of Hebrews in Exile with our honorable teacher, Robert B. Holman Jr. and Sean Appleton. And in this podcast, we're going to tackle the issue of why America as a whole has stopped going to church. We're going to tackle this issue from a Hebraic standpoint and try to explain why this is. So sit back and relax. Hebrews in Exile, you know what we do. Let's go.
Of the harvest, you're my light, you're a creation, you make everything right. This is Rabbi Robert B. Holman Jr. and
Sean Appleton.
And this is
Hebrews in Exile.
This is a place where every time that we meet, we start this thing out laughing because you know what? We have so much fun talking about matters that are so intricate with our people and trying to inform them with the facts that is going on around us.
Oh,
and you know, we look at each other and we start laughing because the situations are quite comical.
Yeah. It's borderline, you know, for our people, delusional on how they think and how we've progressed thus far, and we still don't see the most high in a lot of things that we do. But it's, you know, I think it's just happy to be back, you know, in front of the microphones again and be able to talk about the things that are germane to the Most High.
Right. And you know, it's a lot of fun. Number one. You know what the greatest joy is that I have, and what makes it fun?
What's up?
Is we're expounding truth.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's something where, you know, it's in its totality from its inception to even as we continue to learn. It's nothing that we've arrived at yet, and it's a truth that can stand on its own.
We continue to expound truth.
Yes, emet.
Now I have a motto, you know.
Yeah, you do.
What that motto is?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, truth matters.
That's one.
Two-word matter.
That's
two-word motto.
That's one. I have another one. One man's truth
is another
man's heresy.
All right.
And that seems to be where we are in this narrative of trying to explain to our people the truth that flows out of the mouth of the Most High to his prophets, to his people.
Oh, sure.
And to watch them treat that truth like the pitcher to the catcher, mm-hmm. and shake it off as though it's nothing, mm-hmm. is something to behold once you come to understand what truth is. Yeah,
you know, that, and let me piggyback on that for a second. The fact that, again, as we're imparting truth, to see the thing that was there in the beginning with the Most High, which was what? Wisdom and understanding be imparted to individuals, and they're picking it up and having their lives enriched. One of the greatest testimonies that I have when I first met you was you had a congregation, a non-denominational congregation.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And part of one of the motto or the creed or the mission statement was it is a life-changing ministry.
Right.
And it's exactly what it has been.
And that's what we've done. That's what we've done. That's what we've done.
It's infused that Most High into people's lives, which is awesome.
The interesting fact that really grabs my mind at this point in time is recognizing, and this is something that I said this past week as I was delivering my dissertation. Mm-hmm. American people at large, but especially the melanated man at this point in time in our history is in grave danger of witnessing all over again in a more I don't know if it can be any worse than what our forefathers went, but looking at the melanated man in this exile being exploited, being persecuted and being done as bad as or worse than our ancestors who were hung and our babies who were burned and so forth and so that history of slavery. We are in a new kind of slavery. We are looking at Mississippi reinstating Jim Crow laws. We're looking at a government in this nation that we have been brought to. We're looking at this nation and we're trying to figure out how come they hate us so. One. Two, we're looking at the fact that the institution of the church is declining in America. Now, this is what I don't know. I don't know if the numbers of decline, which they probably don't, are affecting the black community as the way it's affecting the white community. Now, I'm going to say this. Okay. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this.
All right.
I don't want y'all to hear me. I want y'all to hear me. Okay? The white Jesus and the black Jesus are not the same.
Yeah.
So when you talk about Jesus, to me, I need to know if you're talking about the white Jesus or you're talking about the black Jesus.
Yeah.
Because on the other side of that coin, the fundamental Christians, which are primarily and basically of a Eurocentric ethnicity, they are struggling. I'm reading an article in Apple News that talks about the misunderstood reason millions of Americans stop going to church. Now, what I don't know is if in this number, it's also talking about melanated people. Although melanated churches, now you hear me, melanated churches follow the same script that their Eurocentric counterparts follow.
This is very true. Very true. Very true.
Which is the reason I said in the last podcast, when the pastor's wife began to speak about Yahweh, Elohim, God, in a evangelical church and do it with such passion, I'm going, what?
Right.
And what I'm expecting to happen, she can't be the only one that's doing this within the evangelical circle.
Sure.
That once our melanated people hear their Eurocentric counterparts doing, they're going to pick up that same
like
narrative,
that
same narrative, and they're going to start speaking on it also. Like, as I said last week, in the black church, we didn't know anything about praise and worship.
That's right. It wasn't
we had choirs, and choirs was our thing. And then all of a sudden we have this influx of praise and worship from Maranatha and from all of these places, and then we have people start to try to inject it into our black churches, which kind of disintegrated choirs.
Right.
Okay? Right. But we didn't do it until our white counterparts did it.
Yeah, even still, could you even go back even further than that? Because I remember you speaking about the issue of how pastors have this ability to hoop and whatnot, and where they actually got that from. That goes all the way back to the days of our ancestors being in bondage and that whole entire structure of how church is set up. So we've learned this particular religion from them. So it just follows suit to say, okay, if it's picking up speed or it's catching fire over in the European style type churches, evangelical, conservative churches, then it's only a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time
before it winds up in the black church. And like you said, you'll hear preachers up there hooping, saying the name of Yahweh.
Yes, and trying to tell the story.
Right.
But they'll be trying to tell the story without having all the facts. You know what? I'm going to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
An attorney cannot successfully represent his client without having all the facts.
Mm.
You and I have come to this point of understanding text, understanding the Most High, understanding mitzvot, that if we were placed in a position to be a defending or a prosecuting attorney,
sure,
they wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah, they have a real tough time.
They wouldn't
trying
stand a
to
chance.
compete. Absolutely. And this is the other thing that's really interesting about that is you say, okay, well, you guys aren't, you haven't gone to the seminary, you haven't gotten your credentials or anything. I don't necessarily have to have that at all, period, because the text is written so plainly that you can't really err in what it's saying. If you just, this is the reason why you go to seminary. Now, okay, I'm about to get on my soapbox right now. The reason you end up going there, this is one of my ideologies, is because you're trying to learn how to infuse man-made ideologies into the text of the Most High.
Right.
That whole entire diatribe of how the church works and this is Christ and how this, you have to be taught how to infuse that into the text. You have to be taught how to make that stuff work with the text that's there. Because on its own, it will just stand the way it is.
Yeah, right. And, but here's something that's interesting. I'm reading an article in Apple News last week, and it talks about the misunderstood reason millions of Americans stop going to church. And it kind of talks about there's something like 12% of the population, and it has represented the largest concentrated change in church attendance in American history. And it talks about like why this is happening. Now, the article goes on to say that this change is also bad news for America as a whole. Participation in religious community generally correlates with better health outcomes, longer life, higher financial generosity, and more stable families. That's not black church.
So what would you say?
Better health, longer life, higher financial generosity, and more stable families. All of which are desperately needed in a nation with rising rates of loneliness, mental illness, alcohol, and drug dependency.
So what would you say that none of those speak to the black church? So you're saying that demographic right there speaks
yeah, that's not our demographic, except
okay
for people like Alan Parr.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, you have to understand who Alan Parr is. He kind of
okay.
Yeah.
Now,
nothing against the brother, but
now the book goes on to the writer goes on to say that there's a survey of more than 7,000 Americans by the political scientist Ryan Burge and another individual, Paul DePue, attempting to explain why people have left churches or de-churched, as he uses, and what, if anything, can be done to get people to come back. The book raises the intriguing possibility.
Tell the truth.
What if the problem isn't the churches? Isn't that the churches are asking too much of their members, but they aren't asking nearly enough?
What do you think that means?
Well, reading the article.
Wow, the church is not asking enough from its patrons. Okay.
Reading the article, it talks about the idea of the church being more socially connected to its members, to provide the necessities that individuals need to make them whole, as opposed to just teaching or speaking words like feeding and like, various social things that kind of make people whole. But the other issue is that a lot of people have left the church generally because of religious abuse. More general, moral corruption in churches have driven people away. This is, of course, an indictment of the failure of many leaders who did not address abuse in the church. Now, listen, I know, and you know, that's systemic across whether you black or whether you white.
Yeah, poor leadership, a low moral compass will always get people to run in the other direction. A mass exodus out of any place. Absolutely.
Now, why is that? Why do you think that is?
A low moral compass?
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I'm going to give you my knee-jerk reaction. You may not agree with it.
No, come on.
But
it's okay.
I think the institution of churches nowadays is more of a capitalistic prowess than anything else. There is no fundamental rooting and grounding in truth of a matter. And so therefore, because that perpetuates itself, people are going to, let me just be more plain. They're going to get up in the front, in the pulpit, tell you what you want to hear to get you to come back. Not really interested in whether or not you have any growth or not. I think the whole entire position of where they're focusing their energy and their leadership is in the wrong spot, and people can see right through it. This is a place that's supposed to be wholesome. All those things that you talk about, community, being a place where a moral compass is held to a higher standard, and it's just not. It's out for self. It's a capitalistic. I've got to remember. It's capitalistic. We live in a capitalistic country, period. Across the board, anywhere you see Christianity, you're going to see an infusion of this issue of a declination or a monetary. I'm trying to use all my big words, and I sound kind of like I'm rambling. But the point is that's my knee-jerk reaction to it, is to say the reason that is because of a low moral compass, is because the leadership has its eyes set on a bunch of white dead hypocrites printed on green paper, and not for what it should stand for, which is truth, and making sure people have an understanding of that truth.
That's what you think.
That's
your knee-jerk.
That's my knee-jerk answer as to why there's no.
Now, here's what I would say.
Okay.
The primary reason that the moral compass of corruption in churches is an abuse is so general, and that has caused individuals to lose their sense of believing that, quote, quote, God is protecting them from their leadership. It's the fact that the leadership itself have absolutely no understanding of what's coming out of their mouth concerning the word of the Most High.
And the people can see through it.
And the people can see through it.
Say, hey, you know what? That's a very good point, because that is matter of fact, I would probably have to amend my answer and tack it. I'm glad that you said that. A lot of people, I watch YouTube. I've seen several of them congregations, them folk get up there and ask remedial questions. This says this here, and it says something else over here. And what is being explained coming out of the leadership's mouth is nothing that's germane to being
it's
truthful.
It's dog doo-doo.
Right. They're making stuff up to make it work, which
now
you can't infuse two doctrines together.
Now listen to this. Listen to this.
Okay.
Contemporary America simply isn't set up to promote mutuality, care, or common life. Rather, it is designed to maximize individual accomplishment as defined by professional and financial success.
There you go.
Such a system leaves precious little time or energy for forms of community that don't contribute to one's own professional life, or, as one ages, the professional prospects of one's children. working reigns in America, and because of it, community in America, religious community included, is a math problem that doesn't add up.
And that rightly so. You are reaping the fruit of what you have birthed into the atmosphere as far as how that religion is supposed to work. Ours works perfectly because it is the exact reciprocation or the exact diametrically opposed to what you just read there.
Right.
Ours is about community.
Yes.
We have men's folks that talk about if there's the widow, she needs help, the orphan that needs help. Matter of fact, many of our mitzvot deal with community and that responsibility to the community from its leaders to on down to the individual. So I can see why, there's a mass exodus if you're citing those reasons as to why we're leaving. But the Most High's, the way it's set up over here is perfect.
You see, this article goes on to say that the idea of being engrossed in individual accomplishment, in work, and what have you, now has become so great in America that I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired on Sunday. So because I'm tired on Sunday, I have to make a decision. Do I go to church or do I stay home? Or the question becomes one, if one of my friends asks me to come to a Sunday brunch, do I go to Sunday brunch or do I go to church? Now I'm feeling guilty about whatever, but the chances are, because I'm so enamored in my work and success, that I'd rather go sit with my friend at a brunch than to spend hours or time in a congregation that's not helping me achieve my individual goal.
Now, do you think that that's the reason why most pastors have now gone from actually a teaching to more of a, like a Tony Robbins session on how I'm going to help you fix yourself, like free therapy, because that's the only thing that's appealing to people at the particular time, is to say, I'm not coming in here to learn anything. I'm coming in here for you to give me a word of encouragement or some type of adoration, so I can make it through the next 6 days, so I can be successful in what I'm doing.
I mean, it goes on to talk about maybe the baby isn't sleeping well, and when Sunday morning comes around, it's simply easy to stay home and catch whatever sleep is available as the baby finally falls to sleep. In other cases, a person might be entering mid-career working a high-stress job requiring 60 or 70 work hours added to the 15 hours of commute time. Suddenly something in their like 2/3 of their waking hours of the week are already accounted for. And so when a friend invites them to a Sunday morning brunch, they probably want to go to brunch, but they also want to go see their friend because they haven't been able to see them for months, and the friend wins out.
See, as you're reading that, I'm kind of suspect of kind of the nature of the way the author is going with this particular issue. Because that's saying, again, you're putting in the regular work week. You work 40 hours a week, and then you're putting in all this extra time. I don't know if, at least in my industry that I'm in, I'm not seeing excessive amount of hours coming out of people. And plus, and the way that it's set up, you got Saturday, the way they look at it, to rest, and then your day of worship is on Sunday. So you got a preemptive day prior to that. Normally what I'm seeing in the professional executive world is individuals that are working 40, maybe 50 hours a week. So that the article maybe is striking me as if, people are working 6 days a week and they just don't have any time for anything at all. No family, no nothing, just work. And I don't have time to go to church on Sunday to hear this.
Well, but you see, that's the way they think. Remember, I believe this article is more germane to the non-melanated people than it is the melanated people. However, we're copycats. We've always been copycats. We do what they do. They validate for us what we can do. You see, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am literally within the consciousness of my mind, soul, and spirit. I am upset that our people are still functioning with a slave mentality, and they don't even know it.
Right. They've been born into this hive mind that tells them this is the way it should be, and it's very difficult for them to separate themselves from that way of thinking. Cognitive ability.
The article goes on to say, but a vibrant, life-giving church requires more, not less time and energy from its members. It asks people to prioritize one another over career, to prioritize prayer and time reading scripture over accomplishment. This may seem like a tough sell in an era of de-churching. If people are already leaving, especially if they're leaving because they feel too busy and burned out to attend church regularly, why would they want to be a part of a church that asks so much of their time?
Great question. I would be asking the same thing. You just established as your precedent that the reason people aren't coming from maybe a European church society, for them, it's I work too much. So now, why would I want to go to a church that asks me to do more?
Now, I'm going to say something to you.
Because I'm going to get into us in a minute.
Because I'm going to stop the reading here. It's a long article.
Okay.
But I've given you the key points as to why this article, this author, feels like people are leaving the church. And I'm going to say this. More than likely, the numbers are also down in the melanated church.
Oh, sure.
Because we have a lot of our people that just don't want to be who they are.
Yeah. You know, a couple of things that I've heard as to why people are leaving the black church or the melanated church is because of these sometime old-timey rules that are instantiated. Things that they read in a text that they say that has nothing to do with how this particular congregation is set up. The blatant hypocrisy that happens, that literally, again, going back almost to the same issue that I first talked about, which was you see things here and there's a contradictory text somewhere else, and no one is able to answer that question. Answering things that are remedial, even about Shabbat and are the mitzvot done away with? A way to explain it. And you say, well, if this is the case and the Most High is the same yesterday, today, and forever, then why in the world? It's answering questions in a way that makes sense. And because they're not getting the answers that they need, they tend to walk away. But like I said, it's really a twofold issue. Actually, a twofold issue I've heard the most of. Number one, the stipulations that the black church puts on folks, like, let me give you an example, getting sat down for stuff that ain't even in text. You need to go remove yourself from your position in the choir because of some external reason.
Well, let me speak to the whole. Hold your second point. Don't forget your second point.
Okay.
It's interesting that it depends on what denomination of black church we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, that's true too.
See.
Yeah.
I mean, now in the apostolic Pentecostal Jesus only churches, that's kind of how they rule by policy. You know. What's the word? I'm trying to think of the phrase. I can't remember the phrase now, but that was used all the time. But you know, they're watching over you to protect you from the errors and the issues of sin. But But while they're doing that, they do not know what sin is.
Right. Agreed.
I mean, you're trying to protect me and sit me down because I went to the club. Or because you saw me, I wore some clothing that doesn't seem to fit the narrative of the policy of the church. Or for some other frivolous activity that is common to people, but those people are of the world, and you're supposed to come out from among them and be different than they are. You're not supposed to be doing what they do. However, when I look at our text, as I had to explain to some people while I was out of town, the Most High doesn't care if you smoke a cigarette or a cigar. Yeah, it's harmful to your health.
Sure it is.
But that's not a violation of anything that he calls sin.
Right. Or if you're drinking a glass of wine, for that matter. The Most High
doesn't care if you drink a glass of wine or have a shot of bourbon or rum or whatever the case may be. Just don't be drunk unto excess.
Exactly.
So that's not a sin. Sin is defined by the context that's written in our codex, that is written across the street, where they said it was a sin to violate the divine law. And by the way, this is interesting. I was looking in Matthew Henry's commentary the other day, and I forget for what. Oh, I know what I was looking at. I was looking at the text in 1 John chapter 3, I think it is, or chapter 1, verse 3, or whatever it is, where he talks about sin is a violation of the law. And Matthew Henry tells that, he says, to violate the divine law is a sin. But then he comes back on the other side of his mouth and says, but we don't operate by the law. We operate by the fruit of the Spirit. I go, what? What? But you know, now I'm confused. But getting to your point is that questions like that,
right?
The Christian church can't answer.
That's right.
And the problem is that the majority of Christian pastors, even those that have been to seminary, can't answer those questions.
Yeah, they're too big to confront.
Individuals who call themselves bishops can't answer those questions.
It's not that they don't have the. See, now we're getting into another topic.
But my point is not leaving the narrative of what we're talking about. Why people are leaving churches. That happens to be one of them. They're not getting their answers, their questions answered.
That's true. That's true. You know, I gotta go back to this. I have to go back to this because it's right here and it's on my mind. And I've been thinking about this, and I was thinking about putting this as a part of my monologue. Actually, when I talk, you said something that really sparked something, and it was talking about. You said something. These bishops, these pastors, these evangelists, these so-called prophets can't answer those questions. And then when you're presenting, it's not as if these people are not astute. These people are smart. They can go and they can own businesses. They can have a myriad or a plethora of things. They can be engineers. They can be lawyers. They can be all these types of things that give them the cognitive ability to understand. So why is it that they can't get this? So part of me thinking about this whole entire thing is anytime that I'm confronted with dealing with somebody, because I know you may be getting ready to talk to somebody here in the future about some of this, is this. I'm actually in awe and in adoration of the Most High when I'm confronted with somebody that says, and I'm presenting this information to them, and I'm saying, you're smart, and I know that they can deduce the information logically for themselves, when they have a blockage. I'm actually in awe of the Most High, and I praise the Most High. Why? This is the reason why. It's because the Most High thought enough of us to let us see it and them not. I thought about what happened to our ancestor Moshe when he went and he spoke to Paro. And the answer was already going to be given to him. I'm going to harden his heart. There's no answer that he's going to give you other than, no, I'm not going to. It's the same thing that's happening today. Is it too big for the Most High to act upon somebody to say, you know what? They're not ready to receive it, because in the text in 1 Samuel, it talks about King David, or Melech David, before he became Melech David. It says that I see the inner workings of a person. I see that person's heart. I know where it is. And sometimes their heart is not in a right spot to receive text. So therefore, I praise the Most High by saying, if you're rejecting what I'm telling you and I'm giving you information that you can clearly deduce, it's not hard to understand this. Not at all. But there's a stupor that's been put upon you that says that you're not ready yet to receive it. And I praise the Most High that he allowed us to, out of everybody, to be able to say, so like I said, I don't even get in my feelings anymore when somebody don't receive it. I just praise the Most High and say, you know what? Thank you.
Here's
for allowing me.
Here is, first of all, I want to say this, and I'm going to address this. Okay. In the book of Jeremiah, the Most High calls his people stupid.
That he does.
You're stupid.
Mm-hmm. Come on, because you're going to get into my miracle.
Now, the problem that arises is that in order to be where we are, and I want you all to hear me really good, in order to be where we are, there is one systemic phrase that governs our journey, and that is our desire to know the truth.
Sure.
That's the simple equation.
Mm-hmm.
And we approach the Most High with a sincere and dedicated heart for him to teach us and show us the truth.
Sure. Absolutely.
If that's not your desire, then you have blinders on, and you're like the children of the opulent nation of Israel, who spoke to the prophet. When the prophet came to prophesy to them, they said to the prophet, "Tell us lies. Don't tell us the truth. Tell us lies."
Yeah, tell us what we want to hear.
And so when we look at this nation that we're talking about, Hebrews in exile, Yahweh's exiled empire, is filled with people just like our ancestors who would rather be lied to than told the truth.
Can I, please?
Hey, I'm resting for a minute.
I told you off camera and off recorder about this issue of a miracle.
Yeah. But you didn't tell me what the miracle was.
I didn't tell you what the miracle was.
Yeah,
but we've stated what the miracle is several times. And when someone asks me what a miracle is, just like I give my dissertation about what blessings are, and I say blessings come in multiplicities. They don't come in just one-shot deals. Blessings continue to keep. That's why breathing is a blessing. That's why walking is a blessing, because it's something that your heartbeat is a blessing, because you continue to keep getting it when you don't deserve it based on your actions. I have redefined how I think about miracles too, because if somebody were to ask me what the greatest miracle is, it's what we're talking about right now. We're living in a perpetual miracle. Miracles to me now are not the fact that someone the Most High parted the Red Sea or the Sea of Reeds. A miracle, that's not a miracle to me. Because we're talking about the Most High from oneness that created all things. Him moving physical attributes in physics, water being moved on its own, rocks being moved, water coming from rocks, all these different types of things, animals coming up and doing whatever they're doing, the ground opening up. Do you think that that's too hard for the Most High? Is that a miracle to the Most High? No.
No, it's a miracle to man.
It's a man perceives it as a miracle because it's moving some physical element, because it's saying there's an impossibility that's in place. So what I said, I don't even look at it as a miracle anymore. You know what I look at it as a miracle?
What?
The return of the Most High's people back to this. That's a miracle. Because literally, if you look at the state of our folks and what we just explained, if you look at all the prophets, try to get us on one accord.
Oh, no, we can't.
Try it.
Can't do it.
How long have we been in exile out of the land? And I'm going past slavery. I'm talking about go back into
yes.
For a very long time.
Yes.
This is the Most High is saying, listen, I'm a Elohim that can take this blinded stupor of a people whom in the prophets he calls, like you said, eloquently, they calls them stupid. And I will make them a nation and leader of people. No one looks to you as to be a leader of anything other than chaos, confusion, and crime. The Most High is going to use this melanated group to show the world his power. That's a miracle. Moving some water ain't jack squat compared to this. That's child's work compared to getting a nation of people that has been dispersed to the four corners of the world and have them to be able to come back on one accord, be one people with one language.
Have you been reading Ezekiel? That sounds like Ezekiel.
That's the miracle, and it's a slow burn. And you're seeing it unfold in our dispensation of time. That's what's a miracle is to me now, because like I said, moving some ground, that the Most High created the heavens and the earth. It's nothing for him to open up the ground and swallow up some folk if he needs to, or move some water out the way if he needs to, in order to get his people from point A to point B. The real miracle is getting your, because what we're talking about right now is a psychological slavery that's happening. They're not physically putting you in chains. They're reinstantiating Jim Crow laws to reinstantiate a fact of having your mind being institutionalized, so you don't think of anything else other than this diminutive state that melanated people need to be in. That's the bondage that we're talking about. And when you talk about generation after generation after generation continuing to perpetuate this, you get further away from what our community is supposed to be. And if this continues to go on like this, I can't wait to see what happens with the Most High. The Most High turns this around and gets us back into the land. So we are in front instead of being behind. That's what a miracle is to me, not moving some physical attribute.
Well, I don't quite remember where it is in the book of Ezekiel, but it's in the latter chapters of the book of Ezekiel. But we have to go over to Jeremiah to hear what the nations have to say about this whole issue. Jeremiah, who writes these words, it says that our fathers inherited lies.
Yeah.
That statement is germane to the words of the nations speaking about what they're witnessing to with Israel being back under the influence of the Most High, living safely in their unwalled cities and living like they did before the diaspora. That's what those words are about. Okay? We're looking at you because we thought our fathers told us that you had abandoned Israel because of the way that they have abdicated you, they've abdicated your laws, and they're worshiping other idols. Therefore, we were told that you had forsaken them. That's what Jeremiah is talking about. Mm-hmm. We come fast forward into the book of Ezekiel, latter chapters, and the Most High explains. See, here's let me talk about how the prophets work. All of them have the same. They follow the same script. The prophecy is going to open up by talking about Israel's origin. Mm. It's going to switch to Israel's sin. Mm-hmm. It's going to switch to the Most High's anger and all the things that he's going to do in relation to it. And the fourth thing is going to finally wind up talking about their redemption, where he's no longer anger. Mm-hmm. And he's talking about bringing them back into the land. Mm-hmm. The latter parts of Ezekiel speak to what you say. The Most High says, when I have, and I'm paraphrasing, when I have redeemed Israel out of thy diaspora and bring them back into the land, and you find them living in unwalled cities in peace, he says, then you will know that I am Yahweh, mm-hmm, who did this.
Right. Right.
This is the miracle that I did.
Yeah.
You didn't think that I could take a hard-headed, stiff-necked people, mm-hmm, and bring them back cohesively together, mm-hmm, and live peacefully in the land, worship me as the one significant El, mm-hmm, have their language back, mm-hmm, have their temple back, have their Kohanim back, and have King David as their anointed Mashiach, mm-hmm, in the land, living in peace. You never thought that can happen, but I did that.
Right.
That's right. The miracle.
Yeah. That's and it's a beautiful thing.
It's in Ezekiel, and I'm paraphrasing.
Wow. Great minds.
Here's the thing, people. Listen. While the issue of this article here is that from a Hebraic perspective, we don't do church.
No, not at all.
We teach. Now, if you say, well, I gotta come on Saturday and I gotta sit in the congregation and listen to you all for an hour or two, well, we're giving you vital information that is germane to the thing that you're running away from, which is community.
Yes.
Torah teaches community. Yep. Torah teaches having some sense of awareness of the community and the needs of the community. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if you're not being taught that, then you won't know what to do or how to respond to it. Our task is to teach Torah mitzvot. That's what the Most High has instructed us to do. Within that, we have to bring in the culture and the attitude of Israel so we know how to make these mitzvot work in our lives. Mm-hmm. That takes time.
Yeah.
Just like you go to school to get a degree, you wasn't fussing when you had to go sit up in 4 or 5 classes every day for 45 minutes.
That's right.
To learn. Now that you learn, you go, I don't have time to learn anymore. I just don't have time. I'm stressed. Well, that's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly when the things that we teach here in Hebraic context, the Most High says to us, these words I'm giving you today, they shall be life to you.
Absolutely.
Therefore, choose life.
Yeah. Agreed.
I hope we've given you something to think about in today's podcast. I hope that you understand our heart and the intent of our heart. It's not to lead you down a path of rabbit holes. No, it's to expound into the consciousness of your mind the thought process of the Most High and how he thinks about his people and what he has planned for his people that you're never hearing on Sunday morning or in Wednesday night Bible classes, because I'm going to say this, and I don't care if I'm quoted, and I don't think if you call me, my head is big. The Most High's word, his word, it takes precedent over anything anybody else is trying to say that does not know the Most High. And I know we as black people, we honor our leaders and we think that they're the greatest people on the face of the earth. But my friend, if they can't answer your questions, and if they're politicizing their answers, and if they're not telling you the truth, that's like going to the doctor who knows you have a deathly situation, but he tells you lies because he knows it'll make you feel better. But all the time, you're dying. Mm-hmm. You're dying. Mm-hmm. I don't have time to quit. I don't have time to dance around the issues. I'm going to tell you the truth according to the Most High's word. I'm sorry if your Bibles don't contain all that truth. I'm sorry if you've been Hellenized and been influenced by the Greeks and the Romans. But the only way you're going to get to truth is you're going to have to honestly confront the Most High and be open to understand that if you ask him sincerely of heart to show you the truth, I guarantee you he will do that. And the reason why he'll do that, because to him, he follows the same model that I follow. Truth matters. This has been Rabbi Robert B. Holman Jr.
and Sean Appleton.
I say to you,
Shalom.